Hi again, everyone. It's Nicole again here, and I'm going to share with you some quick tips on how to create a very easy chevron background for your page using Jillibean soup papers. So what you'll need is to grab some of your favorite Jillibean soup paper. I'm using the cold avocado soup, your basic toolkit, which is a trimmer, pencil eraser, your tape runner, and some scrap pieces of cardstock. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to need is two pieces of scrap cardstock, one that measures 8 inches wide by 12 inches, and one that measures 4 inches wide by 12 inches. And as you can see, mine don't match, and it doesn't matter what color you use because you're going to be covering it up entirely. Also, what I've done is I've gone ahead and trimmed out several pieces of 1 by 12 inch pieces of paper, pattern paper, and as you can see, they're all kind of coordinate. So I've chosen the color scheme for my page based on one of the papers in the strips that I've cut, and I've gone ahead and just chosen other papers that match and cut them down. So once you've trimmed your papers down to 1 inch wide, you're just going to go ahead and on a diagonal layer them onto your 8 by 12 inch piece of paper. So just apply a little bit of adhesive to the back. I know I'm going to sew on mine later, so I don't use a lot of adhesive, but if you're not going to do that, then you need to add a little bit more than I am. And just go ahead and you're going to complete your diagonal pattern all the way until your 8 by 12 inch piece of paper is completely covered with different stripes of pattern paper. Now, as I'll show you in my final design of my project, my chevron doesn't quite match up 100% perfectly, and I'm okay with that, but if you want your design to match up, then you need to really stick with 3 or 4 different pieces of paper and just keep repeating the pattern. But for me, I had an idea of what I wanted to do with my page, so I was totally fine with it not matching up. And I think it adds a kind of a cool effect given that it doesn't match up. So if that bugs you, just go ahead and just choose 3 or 4 pieces of paper. But if not, just go ahead and go crazy like I did and just add as many patterns of paper as you'd like. This is a really good way for you to use some of your scraps of paper you have lying around, because if you're like me, I have tons of 1 inch pieces of paper lying around, and as you get close to the corners, you'll notice you don't even need a full 12 inch piece of paper. You just need little tiny bits to cover up. So I'm just going to speed this up really, really fast while I finish it off and come right back. Okay, so now as you can see, I've gone through and done the whole edge, and there's just a couple little parts where my paper didn't quite fit all the way to the edge of my cardstock. So I just have a couple triangles here that I need to fill up. There's the other one. So I'm just going to grab another strip of paper in that same design and just add it beside it. And in the end, you're going to be trimming this down. So don't worry about it, this tiny little piece. It's not going to show very much in your final design. And I just need to make sure I find the right paper and line it up. And then we're going to go ahead and do some trimming. So once you have your pieces, there you go. So you can see my scrap cardstock here is completely covered up, and I have lots of overhang. So if you just take your scissors, and you need to make one straight edge, and then you can use a trimmer. But what I found was the easiest thing to do is just to grab my pair of scissors and trim off the skinny end of the piece along the cardstock. Just trim those overhung pieces and keep those because you might need them for the next step. And you just go ahead and you just trim that edge off. Okay, so once you have the edge trimmed, then you can grab out your trimmer and use your trimmer to trim off the other 3 edges of the paper just by shoving them through trimmer edge. And I did find this was easier to kind of flip it over and shove the extra straps through here and just trim seeing the back of the paper. But whatever works best for you, I guess, is up to you. I find that this worked the easiest. So I'll just quickly trim off both ends and then we'll get finished off. Okay, so now that you have your paper all trimmed off, what you need to do is measure it into 2 4 by 12 inch pieces. So just cut one edge down at your 4-inch mark on your trimmer, and then you should have two separate pieces for your page. There you go. Okay, now taking your two 4 by 12 inch pieces, you're going to lift one on the right hand side and turn it the opposite way. And you're going to spread it apart, and now you're going to create the middle of your chevron. So using that 4 by 12 inch piece of paper we had earlier, you're going to want to add that just into the middle, and then grab your strips of paper again, and this way you're going to do the opposite. So take your strips of paper and line it up, butting the bottom edge up into one of the sides of the chevron from before. And then you just add your tape runner to the back, and I don't know why I use so much, but you're going to line it up overhanging, in my case, the white cardstock, and you're going to try to make it match up to the other side, just so you get the same angle from one side to the other. Now, here's what I did wrong. Remember earlier I said, you know, if you want to have your design match up on both edges, you need to use a lesser amount of pattern paper. Well, that's exactly what happened to me. Is I didn't realize that until I got going. So in my case, I made it work and I think it looks good. But if you are going to be concerned with the fact that it's not going to match up on both sides of your chevron, then use a lesser amount of pattern paper. What I mean is different patterns. Stick to 3 or 4. That will repeat on your chevron, and then you should be okay. So you're just going to continue down on your middle piece here. Now that you've got the one paper lined up, you can continue just like we did with the other pieces and add your paper in strips all the way along. So I'll just speed this up again and come back with my finished chevron. Have your pieces all trimmed down and they're all the same size, what you want to do is you're going to add these 3 pieces onto a piece of scrap paper. In my case, I'm going to use a Jillibean paper I have several patterns of. So I'm just going to take, starting on one edge, and I'm going to use this 12 by 12 piece of paper, and I'm just going to line the one paper up onto one edge. And although I love that pink butterfly paper, I have a couple sheets, so I won't miss it as much. And so here's where you'll see your chevron start to take structure, and you will also notice how I have screwed up my pattern. There it is right there. But that's okay, I'm totally fine with that. So you just add this down, and dependent on if you're going to sew on yours or not like me, you may want to add some more tape runner adhesive to the back, but what I'm going to do now that I have it all together is sew all the way over each and every one of those chevron marks to make like a quilted effect, because that's my thing and I really like that. So get all your little bits stuck down, trim off anything you might need to trim off, and you're basically done and ready for sewing. So if you do want to go ahead and sew, grab your sewing machine out. And this takes a little bit of time because there is quite a little bit of detail, but you can just go up and down each chevron and sew it. And what I like about sewing it is that it actually adheres the paper down, and I can be cheap with the adhesive. So that adds a nice little touch. Okay, so here's my final chevron background, and you can really see that there is that difference of pattern that I talked about earlier. And I'm okay with it because I'm going to cover that up with a strip of pattern paper. But just be mindful that that could happen when you create yours. So I'm just going to give you a couple shots here of my final project, and hopefully you enjoyed them. You can see here the stitching that really adds a quilted effect to my project. Just a tiny little bit of stitch detail adds a lot of texture to your page. And then I went ahead with my behind my photo and added a vellum coin envelope and some of the flashcards and Polaroid frames from Jillibean that look just super cute for some detail. And there's that thin little polka dot strip that I used to cover up my error, if you will, in the chevron background. And then my page is complete. I hope you've enjoyed this Trending Tuesday video tutorial, and I hope to see you in the next couple weeks on the blog. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to hearing your comments.